All right. So this summer, Triton Walker is working with me on the history of the Banff classification and sort of my past life, I guess. And I've been thinking, if you think of the numbers 7 and 1, there are two ways to put them together. One is as 17, and he's 17. The other is as 71, and I'm 71. So one way to cross this gulf of 54 years is to think back to what I was doing 54 years ago when I was 17, the summer of my 17th year. So that year I was working in my hometown of Avoca, New York, at if you say the full name, Haynes Potato and Onion Equipment Company, you would realize over the long run this name is not going to work, right? It's too specific, it's too long. So that's right. The company was actually founded in the year that I was born, so it was founded in 1946. And it had this long, cumbersome name, and then in 1975, the name was changed to Haynes Equipment, Inc., and then in 1984, it just changed to Haynes Equipment. So it still exists today, so the boss there had a plane, and there was an airstrip beside the buildings, and so he could land his plane. And one day he had an accident with the plane, minor accident, and the plane ran into a tree or something and bent the propeller. So he was pretty embarrassed about this, and he had to come up with a strategic plan for getting the propeller fixed. And he didn't particularly want, the company had about 45 employees, and they were fairly ordinary, kind of representative townspeople of a small farming town. And so he didn't think they would really understand, and they wouldn't be very good at getting the propeller fixed. Whereas I was this kid who was from a more educated background, and he had this way of speaking. He would preface things with "a man says." So he says, "A man says that you would understand what they tell you at the other end about getting the propeller fixed. So I'm picking you to take this propeller to be fixed." So to go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and it was many hours trip, and so it was clear I needed to stay overnight. So he gave me the keys to his station wagon. We put this big propeller wrapped in a kind of tarpaulin in the back of this station wagon, and so I made my way to Pennsylvania. He'd given me money to stay over in a motel, but I was only 17. I'd never really done that before. I wasn't sure it was legal for a 17-year-old to book a motel room, so I just decided, heck, I don't need to stay in any motel room. I'll just sleep in the car. That seemed like a better way to do things. So I was awakened the next morning by all these, policemen surrounding the car, wondering what this big object in the back was, thinking I had some huge gun or bomb or something. So I showed them. It was just an airplane propeller, and so everything was fine. And so I successfully delivered the propeller to the repair place. I think it was successfully repaired, and I returned home. So that's probably not very similar to what you're doing this summer, but so at that time you could drive at the age of 16. So I'd been driving for a year. Driving was sort of this rite of passage for a young person, so it may seem completely boring to take a trip like that these days, but it was one of the most exciting things you could do. So that was 54 years ago. If you skip ahead 50 years ago, um, that summer I was once again in that same small farming town of Avoca, New York, in college break. I was uh, uh, preparing to go back to Oberlin College for my senior year, and I was going to have this honors project that involved cellular slime molds. And so cellular slime molds, very interesting organisms, just shown here in this recent article from New Scientist. And so I thought I would get kind of leg up on this honors project and order cellular slime molds to come to my home. Seemed to me that my prof at Oberlin would be really impressed with me if I did that. But the company wrote back to me and said they couldn't do that it actually wasn't legal to send organisms like that to a private home, so they were very sorry, but they had to cancel my order. But anyway, I did do research with him the next year, my senior year, so it's about 49 years ago. And in the long run, the guy I was working with, Michael Filosa, became quite a well-known researcher in that area of cellular slime molds. They are very interesting creatures. They don't really fulfill the criteria for either plant or animal. They don't have chlorophyll. They don't have a nervous system. They don't have a circulatory system. But they react to their environment. They behave as if they were sentient to some extent, even though they start out as sort of single cells, and then all the cells merge together, and so finally it's this huge cell with thousands of nuclei, and doing kind of purposeful things. It can go toward food, it can go away from noxious stimuli. So it's interesting then to think of how one becomes interested in laboratory medicine, pathology. So if you just randomly Google like careers in pathology, laboratory medicine, you get some of the most unappealing videos you can possibly imagine, with bad lighting, bad sound, bad presentation, everything. And I think it's one of the great flaws in the recruitment in pathology and laboratory medicine, that the existing videos out there are so bad. On the other hand, this magazine, it's a UK oriented magazine called The Pathologist, is really good, and practically every issue is an excellent kind of promotion for pathology laboratory medicine. So the latest issue has this article on slides, sections, and cells, and I think that it's the best collection of pathology, anatomical pathology pictures that I've ever seen. It even has a kidney biopsy with membranous glomerulopathy right there. So you can't get better than that. So giving Triton this article to look at does sort of connect him to exactly the activity going on around him. So this is a video shot of the Haynes Company from 1991. So the same year that I created the Banff classification. And you can see here the type of equipment that the company made. And if we go back a little bit, you'll be able to see the sizing chains that I made. So they go on this kind of conveyor, and you get the potatoes, onions, whatever it is, going across that, and all the dirt and leaves and stuff would fall through the holes in the sizing chain. And so what I did is to make the actual chain. I think I missed that. There we go. Yeah, so what he's lifting, that's what I was making. I was making roll after roll of these sizing screens or sizing chains for all different purposes. It may be a bit different from the kind of work you can imagine me doing, but anyway, it was my first job, and it was my job not only in the summers, but I could do it during Christmas vacation and so on. It was an easy sort of way to fill in my high school and college with regular employment.